Committee meeting, January 30th, it's 6:04. I am here, I'm Katie Lepari-Shu. Dave, are you here?
Yes.
Scott, are you here?
Yes.
We're currently missing John Rafter, 7th Ward. Did anyone have any comments on the minutes from January 9th? No? Oh, I thought they looked excellent. The only thing that I would say, and it's just a point of clarification, is that I don't hyphenate my last name, but it's not a big deal. Thank you. I think they look great. Is that an acclamation?
Sure.
You don't get to vote on them if you don't want.
Beautiful. Okay, topic A, police department staffing. I'm excited to hear about it.
So we started out this year with, I think, 22 people taking the test, and we've narrowed down to 4 people that were eligible after the physical fitness test. Backgrounds will be substantially completed by the end of this week. At this point, we have no glaring disqualifications and would like to move towards preliminary job offers at the next council meeting. The chances of us actually seeing 4 get all the way through school and the rest of the process are pretty slim, but in order for us to get them to get their medical and psychological exams done, they need to have a preliminary job offer.
Okay.
So being that we've got 3 positions, we were discussing how the likelihood of us actually hiring 4 and keeping 4 are very slim. But if we do, it also puts us in good place for contingency, for attrition, as well as other staffing issues.
I think we've done that before, didn't we? We did that like last year or year before or something like that.
We hired 8 and kept
hoping
3.
to get 5, and we ended up with like 1 or 2.
Yeah, so historically speaking, we end up with a better than 60% attrition rate. And it really has to do with the way the, they just don't meet all the requirements after we get through the civil service requirements.
Yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive process that they go through in the background checks and such. And I just to clarify one thing, just in case, I don't know if it matters, but it's a conditional offer, not provisional. I don't mean to be picky, but just in case. And so, like the chief said, typically we can. I don't think we actually have to go to council for that in the past because it is conditional. So we have it allows us to complete the medicals and psychological evaluations, as the chief said. So we can inform you when that process is completed, but certainly for the final appointments, which we hope to be in early March, because was it March 27th?
Yeah, the timeline that we're hoping to adhere to is the beginning of the academy is March 27th, and we would want to have the week prior to be able to get them in for an orientation period as well as a pre-academy to set them up for success at the police academy.
Yeah.
How many you got ready that could retire if they wanted to? Besides you, because you're not going anywhere.
In order?
Yes.
There's 2 of us that, myself and Sergeant Podjerski, can leave in May. I'm not anticipating him leaving, but like me, he's got the ability to do that, and should something come up, he's the potential is there. Although I think he's planning on sticking around for a while. After that, we're looking at 8 in the next 5 years.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think further out, that if we could keep 4 by some miracle and figure out a way to keep the 4th one.
We've also been discussing at length some retention strategies, but that's for a different conversation.
Right.
Yeah, we just want to make sure you understand that if we make additional offers to 4, there's a chance we end up with 4 police officers that get through the academy, will be +1, because we have 3 vacancies. +1 as according compared to the budget. Given that we've been -1, 2, or 3 over the last, I don't know how many years, I think that would be a good problem to have.
I think in the last 10 years, we were at full staff for 12 hours.
So,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, I think, Scott, we've done this before, understanding, you've got council authorization to go beyond. We never have been successful in that, but if we happen to be, I think that would be a good problem to have. But understanding that we might be +1 for a few years.
increasing our staffing and keeping it at that level, without a real discussion down the road. But yeah, I would be absolutely open to, if we have 4 that make it through, hold on to that, because I think at the very least, we would be able to give the police staff a little bit of a break, since they've been working like crazy the last few years, and to take a little bit of the pressure off for a while. Until we have a retirement to make the levels go to where they should be.
I think you can leave the budgeted number of
Yeah.
officers the same, we'll just be have one extra, until that changes.
I just wanted to mention that we've already had budget savings because we've had vacancies, it'll now be January and February probably by the time they get on. So you'll have 2 months of salaries for 3 officers plus the fringe benefits that we haven't expended yet.
Yeah. That'll help too.
Well, I want to be optimistic this year and say we're going to have 4 that make it through.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Okay, I have no objection to that, so, cool, keep us posted.
Cross our fingers.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, I appreciate that, and the positive attitude, we'll try to keep that going.
cool. Okay, DPW staffing.
So, just a quick update here, if you've been paying attention to our website, we've been advertising for a few different positions, but also for a few different titles. So, obviously we have our budget, which was passed, which was budgeted for specific titles, whether there were people in there or vacancies. But specifically, the positions we're commonly looking at recently have been either a maintenance worker, a motor equipment operator, or a heavy equipment operator. On the water and sewer crew, there's also consideration for water distribution maintenance mechanic. Now, the maintenance worker position, by nature of its experiential requirements, is probably more achievable for a lot of people if you don't have a CDL or if you don't meet certain experience requirements in specific areas of expertise, then you may not qualify for the other titles. What has happened to some of our existing employees is they come in as a maintenance worker and they maybe work towards getting their CDL, which allows them to be promoted to other positions. So in that regard, just at a previous finance HR meeting, we had some discussions about bringing some appointments to council for DPW. They had been interviewed, the offers were out, but we were waiting to hear back. So it's really kind of, it's already been discussed, and I think, we had the approval for it, but we will be having one at the next council meeting for that, who's looking to start on the 13th. And we are also hoping to have another one that is starting later, so they may not be at the next council, but the one on the 21st, just as far as us being able to complete all the pre-appointment stuff that we try and do. That would be a heavy equipment operator on the streets crew, which would actually put us beyond the budgeted number of heavy equipment operators on that crew. However, if you look broadly across the DPW department as a whole, all the crews, that we would still be within range. Plus, we've had vacancies on that crew, that, like Jenny said, with the police, that would help cover some of those additional costs. The other thing to keep in mind is those salaries they're between maintenance worker, MEO, and HEO, they're a few grades apart, but the dollars are not huge differences. Ranges from 31,000 to just under 35,000.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had trouble following, so.
Sure.
We have open how many positions between those 3 titles? Just the
So
one?
we've been advertising for 2, but we had previously discussed appointing 1, which the committee had, agreed to. We thought we were gonna have it at the prior, I can't remember the council date, it was the 14th, I think.
Yeah, last week.
But because of different things that, and their ability to start, because that was, we had mentioned that we just done the interviews, and, so they won't be able to start until later, so we're just gonna push that to the next council meeting, which
Okay,
is
so that
coming
one's
up on the
already
7th.
been approved and it's
Yep.
budgeted. Okay.
Correct, yeah. So the next one, we'd probably be looking at probably bringing to the 21st council, just because I don't know if we'd be having everything in place in time for the 7th, which is
Okay.
fine for the start date that candidate has available. And that one, again, it's budgeted, but it is extra on that crew. So it'd be like, we have an HEO opening on the water and sewer crew, but we also have an opening, we also have a maintenance worker opening and which is going to be filled, but a maintenance worker and a motor equipment operator on the streets crew, that is open as well. So it's a different title change, but because we don't often get someone with the right CDL qualifications, provides an operational benefit to the crew to be able to have different people that can basically move equipment and whatnot. right?
Ultimately, I mean, if we could have everyone as an HEO, that'd be fantastic. That means we're more versatile. Anyone can move equipment, excavators, whatever we need moved, they can move it. So ultimately, we always like to promote someone. So typically, maintenance worker comes in, they don't have a CDL, they get their Class B, we promote them to an MEO. Once they get their Class A, then we promote them to HEO. That's typically how we decide to make those movements.
So this is on the streets crew?
Streets and water sewer
Streets
department.
and water sewer.
Yep.
The maintenance worker is the water sewer and the HEO is the streets.
Yep.
Okay, but you were saying that okay, so this is over HEO for that
Yeah,
particular
so
crew.
the budget for if you look at the streets crew, I think we only had 2 budgeted HEOs. But if you look at the budget and the personnel services schedule, which is at the end, it has all the counts.
Yep.
We're still within the total number of HEOs, it's just what crew it's on.
DPW,
Sorry,
for DPW. as
for
a whole.
DPO, but
Right.
as a whole.
Okay, does that negatively impact the other sections of DPW?
Well, I wouldn't say it negatively impacts them, I mean, we certainly wanna be able to fill out all the crews with the positions that are vacant.
Right,
And as Chris said, I know CDLs are much more valuable than non-CDLs. However, it's also harder to recruit. So the idea is if we can hire someone in the maintenance worker position, we'll do that.
yeah. I mean, to me, it seems like we really wanna capture this person who's qualified to be an HEO. I think I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the implication is for the other crews, budget-wise. Yeah, Ginny?
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what they're saying is that we have so many vacancies, they're going to fill 2. One of them that they're going to fill is a different title than what they anticipated that they were going to fill.
Oh,
But
okay.
because of the budget savings that we've had from the vacancies, we will have enough funding to cover the expense for the rest of the year.
Okay, and is that
Yeah.
Accurate that the first 2 months of budget savings will cover the difference in pay scale?
Yes, because
Okay.
it's only, the difference between the 2 titles is just a few $1,000s,
Okay.
which,
Oh,
that's,
yeah, right, okay.
And
Excellent.
maintenance worker
Thank you
to
for that.
MEO, I believe was $1,000. And
Um,
then it was another 1,500 to go to HEO, so.
Or between the maintenance worker and the.
That's not including the benefits and the,
Um,
Right.
Correct, plus we still have continuing vacancies in DPW that we're still trying to fill as well.
Yeah.
So those would help as well.
Okay.
I appreciate you all explaining that to me. Any questions, thoughts?
I got a kind of a dumb question, I think, but is there, because they're anticipating, instead of having to wait for us for the next council, is there any way that we can approve that next position and not necessarily have a name for it? That they're okay to go ahead and fill that at this council meeting coming up?
Well, I think that's like a broader question, right? Is like if a position is budgeted and there isn't a change to the salary from what we had approved in the budget, do we need to approve names? I don't.
So I do believe there are different reasons why we would need named appointments
Okay.
that come up. Typically in the committee meeting, depending on where we are in the process, the names may not be mentioned for a variety of reasons, including the possibility of the candidate giving notice to the current
Sure.
employer.
Yep.
But also, I think the last time we spoke, we had just done interviews that day, we had offers out. We were even waiting to hear if they were accepted and when they could start.
Uh-huh.
So in the one instance, they couldn't start for a while because they're coming from out of the area, they're moving to the area. So it's just gonna take longer to get them started.
Okay.
And I appreciate it, Scott, but I think in this particular instance, again, this employee would not be able to start until the 27th. So we do have time to be able to fully complete without us saying, well, we have to do pending, some pre-employment stuff. We'll be able to come and say, nope, everything's done, we're good to go, ready to go for the 21st, and that's it, so.
Okay.
Just like one of those questions, I was just wondering if,
Yeah.
streamline it a little bit, and we're gonna take up the other in the charter review anyway, so.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I do think that's something that we can explore a little bit, Scott.
Cool. Great.
I don't necessarily, I do some more research, but I don't know, I mean, the city administrator has the appointing authority with council approval, as the code says. There's a name and a salary and all that attached to the, appointment that I sign off on. Does that need to go individually, every single one of those to council before the person starts? Or can it be a situation where in some way, the budget's established with this number of positions in each department that are authorized for the year, when a vacancy occurs, we can fill it, as long as it's budget neutral and within the number of positions authorized for the year, without having to go and get a council motion for the individual leader. That's something I've been wanting to get to the bottom of and bring that up.
Well, that's
What was
an
this part of the
issue
charter
that's-
discussion?
That's an issue that's come up for the last 10 years.
Not to get off topic, but we are gonna kinda look at that in the charter review too, to try to streamline that a little bit.
Just from an audit perspective, if Greg had the authority via the charter to do all of the hires, he would just have to sign the form in the personnel department. That's the form that I would show the retirement system or our private auditors the authority of hiring this person. What I currently do now is I show them the motions from council. So as long as we have all of the checks and balances in place, it's fine.
And this committee, what we can do the quarterly updates anyway. We can share updates as they happen with new hires and then also the quarterly update, but
Yeah.
avoid the need to work around the council and committee schedule, which sometimes can be problematic.
Right, and in terms of personalization and understanding who is working for the city, I've asked that names be included on the quarterly staffing sheet so that we know, we're talking about Ken or whatever, that it's a real person and, so I don't think that having the name in the motion gives us any more connection to an individual on any particular DPW crew, other than, oh yeah, I think I remember, that motion, so, anyway, we'll talk about it in charter, it'll be great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, Greg,
Um,
I didn't.
No, that's fine.
so that was mostly an FYI thing, right?
The only thing I wanted to add,
Go ahead.
the only thing I wanted to add is we did lose another DPW employee at the wastewater treatment plant. They gave
Okay.
notice last week, and so we're gonna be posting for that position as well. We lost them due to salary. They're going to work for a local, Cal Lawrence, the gas company that has a gas main. He's gonna be in charge of 60 miles of the gas main. So increasing his pay significantly, and we're losing a good employee.
Yeah, that's a private sector competitor, right?
Yeah.
Bummer.
Mind if I ask how much of an increase we're talking?
He's doubling his pay.
We're finding in some of the positions, and specifically in DPW, that even people that are interested, or like I received a call the other day from someone asking about what the salary was, and they were making more than double what the position
my
pays.
goodness.
So that seems to be a theme recently with some of those DPW positions, that it's roughly double.
That's problematic.
It's good, it's very problematic. I mean, it's difficult, but this,
And they are all keenly aware. All of our staff are keenly aware,
Sure.
so.
So the salary study is ongoing.
Okay. You read my mind.
Yep. And then the other piece of that is benefits, which is always a difficult thing. We've had some positive response when discussing benefits with prospective employees, but it is difficult. It seems like, especially, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of our, younger employees are really more apt to look at what they have in their pockets than thinking ahead to retirement and stuff. So we try and convey that and the importance of it and what it can mean, but it's challenging when they have other options that are significantly higher.
Sure.
But
Okay,
sorry if I could just,
no, please.
I will point out that it does seem like, culture-wise, that there's a lot of positivity in the city, that there are, people who have interviewed and felt very good about just the people that interviewed, like, you know, Chris and his team that interviewed the people. And certainly some of our existing employees have had some positive things to say about, the crews and such that they're on. So, much like I think the chief may attest to, and I believe the fire chief may do the same, is that if we can get them in and get them here for a little bit, you know, that helps, that goes a long way, but it's not the only answer.
I think it's really important that they get a chance to experience the culture and recognize the value of what it is that they're getting in the workplace. That's not entirely derived from salary. You know, there's a lot of satisfaction in working with a team. And, you know, I think more than ever before in my career, I've seen cross-departmental cooperation, like with DPW, and there just seems to be a lot more exposure and a happier environment now than I can ever recall, really.
Cool. Joe, you had mentioned that the salary study is ongoing. Do we have any idea for a timeframe for that?
No, actually, the only thing I followed up with an email to our contacts there at the end of last week, just to confirm that they, you know, that they received all the information I previously sent, and that and if they needed anything further. And I've not yet got a response, so I'll be following up again this week.
Okay.
It sounded like sometimes they do have times of extreme busyness on their end, but certainly we want to make sure ours is still going through their process. So if we get an update, we can share that. But
Thank you.
right now, we've submitted employee data as well as job descriptions, which is an important piece because that allows them to align more when they do their comparisons. Some financial information that they requested, and I'm just trying to confirm if they, you know, what specific benefit type stuff they may still need. So we're working on it. It's just no timeline yet.
Okay. Okay. Water treatment plant upgrade bond resolution.
So this is, it's not a new project, same project that we've talked about in recent council meetings. We received $5 million worth of grants through the bill and the WIA programs, and the balance of the roughly $8 million project will be a 0% loan. Upgrades at the plant itself, and the next step in the process is an RFQ for engineering consultant. But the bond resolution will need to go to council as soon as we have it. I don't know if it'll be ready for the 7th or it might be the 21st. That's just we have to have a resolution authorizing the entire amount of the project, even though we're going to be bonding for none of the project because we have a 0% loan. We need to have the authorization so
Okay.
far.
Now, is this for a new grant, Greg, or is this the updated one that,
This is the update.
so it'll be an update? So the bond resolution will look a little bit different because it's an update of a previous bond resolution.
Oh, okay.
We had done a bond resolution when we initially applied for the initial grant. The project cost has increased since then. We've gotten additional funding since then, so we have to update the bond resolution.
Okay. Okay. Restricted donation for the fire department. We love those.
Yeah, it's just it's another restricted donation that the fire department receives from, NYSEG, and it's restricted for gas training, equipment, and, I just need to bring the motion to council for them to accept it.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I have no questions on that,
Cool.
so.
Okay. Report on budget transfers previously approved by the city administrator.
Um,
You sent that out to
Yeah,
the
I sent that out over the weekend. There were about 36 of them that he had approved since June. I apologized in my email that I didn't get the report out last quarter. And so I don't know if you have any questions. We don't usually go over them in detail at the
Sure.
meeting. It's really just to keep you informed of what we've been doing.
Yeah, the only one that stood out to me, well, I noticed two things. One was there were a lot of transfers, and now that I'm thinking about it, could have been water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plant.
Was it the one that had several lines to the,
Well, I noticed like the frequency.
yes. What was happening with the water is that we had a lot of valve repairs and or water breaks. And it was just a matter of or hydrants or whatever the project was in the water department itself. And that usually compounds itself towards the last quarter of the year because they run out of funds by then.
Sure.
And it really just depends on how many repairs they have to do.
Okay. The only other one that it was like an actual one that I had questions on, and not in any critical way, but just for my understanding, is the one for DPW where it was like a lot of.
Yeah, what that was is, it was, Chris had gone through all of the different projects that they were looking at. And instead of myself doing them separately in one transfer after another, I just put them all in one, so it looked a little overwhelming because I had done so many lines. But each transfer was in Greg's authority. I just had put it all into one thing. And what it was is John and Chris had gone through all of their projects that they were doing and realizing what they were short on budgets and what projects they weren't doing, and they were able to switch the funds around.
Okay.
And then just move them to what they needed to do.
Okay, cool.
And a lot of it had to do with water.
Did you have any questions?
Excuse me. No, I don't. I do have a question about this. Did we do that? I just missed it because it was blended in with that one.
No, I think we missed it.
Oh, maybe do you know what? I have to apologize. I copied the agenda to a document so I could take notes, and I must have deleted it by accident. Okay, so we're just gonna jump back to topic D, nope, to topic E, assistance to firefighters grant application. Please.
Oh, you recall this from, I think it was actually 2021, or maybe it was either December 2021 or January 2022, we applied to the same program. It's a FEMA grant program. This was to replace an existing fire engine with a different piece of apparatus. It's a combination fire engine as far as it has a tank as well as a ladder, so it's called a Quint. There are 5 main functions, and it's a versatile piece of equipment. Brian thinks that essentially it does the work of 2 pieces of equipment. His explanation, and what happened in the past, we used to have 2 ladder trucks, we now have 1. This will replace an existing engine, but also have a ladder. So it's serving a dual purpose.
Okay.
It's 1-for-1 equipment right now being replaced, but serving the purpose of 2, you know.
Okay,
We were unsuccessful in our application last year.
okay.
Did not get that, obviously, that's why we're reapplying, for $1 million out of the 1.5 million that we expect to cost. We're evaluating what other options might be available for $500,000 to complete that. Absent any other grant funding, it would be covered by the city's general fund.
Excuse me, Greg, you said this program would it pay for $1 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 1.5.
Okay.
And we have, I think Judy had mentioned this during our discussions about levels of service and all of that, is that we don't have a ton of experience with public safety grant applications, so we actually, Brian had reached out to a firm, I think out of Rochester, who has a lot of experience specifically with public safety grants, and we've hired them for $1,500 to help us with this application, so we're hoping.
How much was it?
1,500, 1,500? So we're hoping that that helps improve our application this time around. It's a very competitive national program. There are hundreds of, thousands of applications, hundreds of awards each year, but it's a competitive program. So,
Yeah, I mean, if they can help
The return on that $1,500 investment would be great. You said it's called a Quint?
that's, yeah.
Okay, just checking.
And Brian also said that the firm that he hired looked at our application and said that we were really good in a lot of areas, but there was one area that he thought that we were lacking, and that
Okay.
he's gonna really focus on that area, and hopefully it'll bring the points up into our application.
Cool.
Um,
I supported this last year, so I'm glad that we're going for it again. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns?
Nope.
No? Okay, thank you, Dave, for bringing that to my attention. Okay, just making sure that I didn't miss anything else. Health insurance broker.
Do you wanna start off?
Sure. As you know, during the budget process, we talked about our health insurance cost. And we talked about that we were going to be exploring different ideas and opportunities. We have met with another health insurance broker, and they have proposed different ideas with us. We've also been consulting with our current broker, and they have brought us new ideas. So we want to, Joe and I and Greg want to meet to discuss and explore these options more, and then we would like to bring something to the council for a recommendation, either on the February 7th council meeting or the February 21st council meeting, because what's going to happen is it's going to take time to make whatever transition we want to make, and then we have to discuss it with the unions, and there's just we don't, even though it's only January right now, the year is gonna go by very quickly, and we want to be able to get everything in place. And because we are negotiating with a number of unions right now, it's really the perfect time to start these discussions. So that is what we would, we just wanna keep you informed, and also if we do have something ready for the 7th, we would like to bring that to council.
And that would be if we change our health insurance broker.
Yes.
If we don't make a change, then I suppose we don't need a council motion to do that. But we just wanted to let you know that we're looking at all options. We're not, just satisfied with what we have now. We think the costs are exorbitant, and we're looking for a better option if one exists.
Okay.
So. And to clarify,
Yes.
we're not looking to reduce or
I was just gonna,
lessen
I was,
the benefits that our employees are receiving. If we can do it more
I was just gonna say the
cost-effective.
exact same thing, Greg. We're looking for different ways to provide the same coverage, but in just a more affordable way. That may be, many different options out there to do that.
So in terms of implementation, is this something that would be for realistically 2024?
Oh, yeah, if not sooner.
So, okay, so I guess that was my question was, what would we be talking about at council in February if the change is for 2024?
If we need to bring something to council, as Greg said, it would be approval to have a different broker or a health insurance consultant.
I think it's also important that when looking at whether we're gonna have a new broker or a new plan, that we try to not only keep the same program, but make sure that there's not an increase in out-of-pocket costs, especially considering the issue that we're having with salary, and people are leaving for $20,000, $30,000 more than we can offer here. I mean, we gotta have some benefit.
Well, one thing that we're hoping to benefit from is that if we're able to reduce the health insurance costs, we can move that to the salary lines.
And just to add to that, if I may, the other piece is that if we can recognize a significant savings to allow us to do something like that, it's important to note that the employees who are enrolled in plans would recognize savings as well on their contribution fees.
Right.
And that may actually be more, potentially, depends on, of course, how the numbers work out, right? But it potentially could be a greater amount than what, if there is a slight increase in cost, because, depending on how the plans align and stuff like that. But
Right.
But no, I think that, as everyone said, I think the goal is to, maintain, that's that is one of our selling points, is that we do have good health insurance, so.
But if we're able to bring the premium down, the employees' contributions also go down because it's a percentage of the premium.
Right. It's a double win in that sense.
I apologize, this just didn't make the agenda, it was an oversight on my part.
No problem.
Charlie has requested, that we add BUY Board, it's BUYBOARD, National Purchasing Cooperative, to our list of nationwide intergovernmental joint purchasing consortiums.
Okay.
You'll see in the purchasing policy that we list a number of agencies that we are members of, and we have to get council approval to become a member, and that will enable Charlie to buy mowers, Ferris mowers that he wants at a much lesser cost than not being a member of this. So we would like to bring a motion forward for council approval to become a member of this cooperative.
Okay. I mean, I don't know anything about purchasing consortium, so I will take his word for it that this is great.
Yeah, and John Janus also researched it, and the state is, there's many municipalities that are a member of it, and the state's one of them.
Oh, good.
So we know that it is a well-received organization.
Cool. Okay, any questions, anybody?
Love you.
No? Okay. Any additional discussion?
No, can we back up to an item because I had to step out?
Oh, sure.
I gotta, she said purchasing and triggered my brain a little bit. On the,
Budget transfers?
yeah, that one, F.
Okay.
Great, could you go over a little bit about the $10,000 transfer for the purchasing office?
Purchasing office, so if you obviously recall that we moved some offices around in City Hall the last year and a half probably. This was another area that we identified some needed improvements. We're basically adding some partition walls in a otherwise open office, previously open, creating a little better working environment.
Did we,
Other thoughts
Yeah,
there?
it was originally in the adopted budget, but because of some employee absences, things had to wait, and the approach ended up being a little bit differently, so we just had to move it from the purchase service code to the 409 code to pay for the supplies.
are we still going ahead with the building study that we asked for?
Yeah, that RFQ has not been prepared and set up yet, but that's on my list. I know your question you're probably thinking is, why are we making physical changes now if we're gonna do a study? I don't think that a study is gonna result in any major construction project of the city being undertaken in the next several years. I think this is more of a long-term planning thing. There might be some short-term tweaks as well, but I don't think that what we've done in City Hall is something that's going to be undone anytime soon. And I think it was necessary, both the purchasing changes, the clerk's office, and the code/planning and development changes to allow us to operate
More of a
efficiently.
building master plan.
Yeah, I think the master plan, really, if any changes are coming out of that sooner than later, it's probably more of the public safety building. We've got a number of things to look at there. And the armory study is also ongoing as well, such a study, so if that helps.
These changes will greatly benefit the staff. They'll each have their own private work area. Confidential information for some of the job positions will remain confidential. And it will be a much more employee-friendly setting for the 3 individuals that will be located there.
Do you feel complete? More to say?
Do I what?
Do you feel complete, or do you have more to say?
Oh, I thought you said, are you more upset? I'm like, I'm not upset at all today.
I'm like a little, but not quite that much.
I guess I was just kind of taken back that we're doing something in there, I guess. When I saw this, I was like, what are we doing? But then again, I gotta remember, I guess we don't need to know absolutely everything either.
You can stop down and I'll show you what's going on.
minutes.
Is it in the,
But then I remember Joe gave me a conversation when I asked him if he was settling in, and he turned to me and said, my office was being done anyway. So I forgot the whole conversation we had.
is it in like the back of the finance department?
Gene is doing a fantastic job,
I believe it. I heard
Gene's a
good
keeper.
things about Gene.
definitely.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's really gonna benefit, every member,
Mhm.
especially with all the Zoom meetings that we do now.
Yes.
And it'll give them privacy, they won't be able to, they'll be able to hear better, they'll be able to, and as I said, confidential information, is crucial for especially one of my employees.
Excellent question.
Okay.
Ready? Any additional discussion?
Yes, we are.
Where are we with the parking study?
Ooh.
Well, the mayor's convened a task, what we're calling it, a task force.
Yep.
I think our first meeting is scheduled for
February
next week, February 9th. I've done quite a bit of initial data collection. I have no intention of hiring a consultant to do a study. We've done that before. I think what we can
Several
do
times.
in-house and with the community committee is gonna be a much better product and not cost additional money. But I think that's something that, similar to how the Deer Task Force has gone through and reported to CLIC, I think the parking task force is gonna go through and report to this committee, I would say, Mayor.
And the expectation is that they're gonna essentially follow the same arc, which is one of the interesting things about the Deer Management Task Force, is that half the folks that were on that task force to begin with, they wanted to move the deer, they wanted to provide birth control to the deer, they wanted to do anything other than culling the deer. But by collecting data, they wound up convincing themselves of the direction they need to go. And they wound up engaged in an education campaign, peer-to-peer, which is honestly as necessary times 10 for parking. I think it's extremely important that we have a community-based understanding of where we are with our parking. So it's not the city saying X, but rather that the community begins to understand where we are. And then having determined a fact-based foundation is able to put that information out peer-to-peer as we're starting to develop here with these folks and, through Greg's leadership, a parking strategy that
What is,
that presents to council.
what is our ultimate goal that we're trying to pull out of the parking study? Because initially, when we talked about a parking study, a lot of it had to do with, so we had actually just come off having a parking study done just a few years prior, but it was, the thought process was started because of the DOT parking lot and the building that was happening there. And now we have an agreement to provide parking spaces in the parking garage. We have and then on top of that, we have possible reduction of parking spaces in the parking garage with the repairs of the parking garage. But what is our ultimate goal? Because the other piece of this is paid parking, which has always gone regardless of how many parking spots we had. There's certain areas that are always hot spots. And when we initially did it, but we implemented, in my opinion, it was not implemented well. But I believe we still made something like $60,000 a year doing that. And then we decided, just because certain people complained, they didn't like the paid quarter. And so it was one fell swoop. And I'll admit, I was part of that decision. A decision I think I'd rather go back and change. But we axed it right away, even though it could have been done better. So.
At our next council meeting, February 7th, there'll be a presentation by Wendell. Is that all right?
No, you're fine. I was unrelated. Please continue.
Okay. There'll be a presentation from Wendell, and there'll be information that's presented as part of that will inform the conversation around paid parking and what that might look like as a revenue stream, what's other side of that, of that presentation is more likely when conversation will start to have some benefit within the context of the finance committee.
My other concern though, also, is Deed Street is gonna start to, wasn't it this month or this coming month? They were
Be a
due.
couple months, apparently.
Yeah, but we start putting people in there, we take the fences down, people are gonna start filling in and wanna know where they can park in Deed Street. And we haven't done, as far as I know, we haven't made any changes to the signage. And we said that that would be in place by the time that was finished. I mean, do we wanna remove some of these signs? I mean, I don't know what the option is, but right now we still have like, don't we have 2 hour, 4 hour, no overnight parking still littered through there?
And I
How
think
long,
that's-
what's, my other question is, what's the ultimate time frame on when we want this done by from this committee, from the ad hoc group to get a report to us?
I don't know that we have a firm structure determined. I think this conversation is going to have to happen, that will happen at first meeting, that will start to determine what our goals, what our timelines are. There's more than anything else going to need to be an investment of time from the individuals that are taking a part of this task force to do some of their own homework, and that's going to, in some fashion, I'm sure, determine what we are looking at even for a second meeting. So I can tell you what I'd like, but that's not necessarily what we're going to be looking at. So I think it's, to be honest with you, we'll know more on the other side of that meeting.
I can't speak for you guys, but I'd like a report back to the council after that meeting of like what went on and what the initial, the preliminary decisions are being made.
I think that's all. And in fact, it's probably more likely that it's going to, that the report back to council certainly, but I think we will need to determine the workflow for reporting. Is it the finance committee? Is it quality of life? Not quality of life doesn't really what's on. But there is likely one layer in between the council report and that's likely being, it's more than likely going to be finance. I don't know that it's going to be 3 months of that would be fast enough for us.
Greg, how involved are you gonna be with the parking committee?
I'm gonna share it.
You're a chair of it? So could you just do that as part of your report?
That's part of the administration.
Oh, reporting to us.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see what.
I could, and you can have it now. Definitely not there. If you want.
just like an overall, hey, we met, blah, 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 and is there any questions? I think that would streamline it.
I just want to know where.
And then,
what's
but the other
happening.
question is, Dave, I go back to what we just went through a little while ago with ad hoc committees and stuff. Is this gonna be on the next agenda that we're gonna get who's on there, and we vote on it?
I could tell you who's on there, certainly.
I think considering that level of importance with this ad hoc committee, I think it's important that the council knows
Who's on it?
who's on it.
We can do that.
Because this has been, I mean, this has been a big deal now for a couple of years.
They meet on the 9th. I can present that on the 7th. It's just
Yeah.
part of the agenda. I can't imagine that there'd be anybody who would be kicked off of it. It would be hard to imagine that that would be the case, but certainly we can report that to you.
I have one more thing.
Okay,
Meeting time
here, for this meeting,
for finance.
yeah.
Can we bump it at all? Are you guys able to bump it to starting at
So
6:30?
I just talked with the city clerk before the meeting, and she was gonna take a look at the, master schedule and try to find, a great solution.
I don't think it's an issue at the, oh, actually, it's at the end of the month. It's just this meeting.
talked about though taking like the charter review and flip-flopping it with another one that would completely open up the spot for.
I don't think we need more than an hour.
Well, the
an
charter,
hour and a half.
the charter review committee eventually is gonna go away anyway, so that's why it's easier, I think, for that to flop.
But that's on a different night, isn't it? It's not tonight.
Right, it's Thursday night.
Right, so if the click meeting prior to finance is the issue, I mean, that one meeting a month, if you guys are able to, like, I mean, it's gonna just make a longer night for everybody, but if we can start at 6:30, or I don't know if you wanna bump it.
Well, sometimes with the finance, though, like I was saying earlier, we hit every letter of the alphabet.
Yeah,
We start out slow like this, and then all of a sudden, towards the middle of the year, it's,
Yeah, I would say I'm very open to this committee not meeting at the historic date and time. But I wanna let our master scheduler come up
Okay.
and take a look at
I mean, I
this.
wasn't necessarily asking to switch the day for this.
Yeah,
I mean, I
right.
don't mind the back-to-back, we just need a little bit more time.
Yeah, I'm fine with the time changing too, if that's what we end up with, but I think we gotta let Carrie take a look at it and make some suggestions, and I'm sure it'll be really hectic, but we'll get it figured out.
Okay, so for you this week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
That's one thing before you, just
Uh-huh.
quick. I'll send out tomorrow, so I've just given that thought, I don't need to have you guys wait around until the 7th to know who's on this parking committee, I'll send a list around to the council, either tonight or tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have agreed to sort of wait to talk about paid parking, let the
I'm not
task
sure
force-
we agree. We kinda got an email saying that, we needed to not do it, which I find was very inappropriate. If we wanna bring something up and we wanna discuss it, that's really up to us.
That's true.
Okay, and no disrespect to you, Mr. Mayor, but I don't think that that was appropriate, that you're telling us that we can't discuss something if we wanna discuss it. That's just my opinion.
So I'll leave it up to the committee then, in terms of what I wanna do right now is establish whatever topic we wanna begin to discuss at our next meeting, whether the committee decides that that's paid parking. I have a list of other things that we could get into, so I just wanted to know if there's anything that, just to give staff like enough time to be able to, give us their real findings and thoughts and feelings on things. So does the committee want to address paid parking going forward in tandem with the parking task force? Or do you wanna explore a different option for revenue
I mean,
generation?
I see it both ways, because on one hand, you like to be able to collect data, but it's also ultimately, at the end of the day, it's our job to help pay to keep the lights on everywhere and decide on different revenue sources. And sometimes, when you're not responsible for that, it's very easy to say, well, I don't wanna pay a quarter or 50 cents or anything to pay to park my car anywhere in the city. And it's easy to be influenced by outside opinions, that people that come into the city that don't wanna pay to park their car. So, I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't have a combination, while the parking commission's doing the work, us having preliminary conversations about paid parking, about how that would look, where the areas are that would possibly be an area to do that. And we could even start with where we left off, with where we removed it all. And look at what other cities have done. I mean, we've all traveled to other cities, we know how paid parking looks everywhere else and how they do it. And I think that alone shows us how we didn't do it properly here, because it made it extremely inconvenient.
Okay.
But I'm okay with having the discussion here, so we're ready for that report. And then we can merge our conversation with what the commission has decided. And I think along the way, since Greg is gonna be giving us reports at council about what's happening, I mean, that might help decide where our discussion goes.
define, well, I think you gave us an interesting starting point, which is, let's look at what we did previously. Where those areas were, how much revenue that generated, strategies. I think we can look into,
You talking about for next time or for?
for next time,
now?
for
Okay.
next time, oh my gosh, yeah, no. We're almost out of here.
Well, half that
So-
information I have now, the only thing
Oh,
we
you
don't
do?
have is finances. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, let's talk about it next time. And then, I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, in terms of, you know, if we were to implement this, like potential cost to implement, because we would have to, you know, purchase machines and that kind of stuff. I have no idea what those type of things cost. Just start to be able to do the cost benefit. I think we know what the result of that conversation is going to be, but we can get it started.
I kind of look at the police chief out there when we're talking about parking and stuff, and it's gonna, probably a lot of it fall on him, so what is he
Not
gonna do?
necessarily.
You don't think so?
We can do it any way we wanna do it. I mean, if,
That's an interesting
Yeah.
consideration, though. I mean, we have one part-time parking attendant. Or is she full-time?
She splits her time, she's full-time, but she splits her time.
Yeah, so
but
I
we can
mean,
do it any way we want though. If we wanna make it a full-time position and fall on that plate, we can, but might not have to either.
yeah. So I guess I just wanna be as specific as possible about like what data we're looking for from, that we need for next time to begin this discussion.
Probably, I think Dave started out the right way was, when we did it, even though we did it bad, how much did we make? That might be and then kind of work a little bit off of that. Unless you got a different idea, Greg, I mean, it may not be the best idea, but.
Yeah, we have the chair of the parking committee.
I mean, I'll admit it's a little, I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna have two groups working on the same issue and have it all merged together I have to think about that a little bit, but, I mean, certainly there's a little value in looking at what we made before just as a baseline, but it was, you know, the most recent time we had paid parking was just in a few lots. It was in the bottom of the parking garage, the Westcott lot, and that's it.
2 lots.
Westcott lot, and it wasn't in Wall Street. It was just.
Oh, you're right,
It
it
was
wasn't.
Westcott and the
That's right.
bottom of the parking garage.
Yeah.
We can talk a lot more in detail about why that was and why it didn't work well, and I think there's some articles that you all should read to understand the
Cool.
theory, the facts behind paid parking, and where it's successful and where it's not, and why it's recommended or not. There's a lot to talk about, and there's no reason that I can't share everything that I'm talking about with the committee, subcommittee, task force with you guys as well. Given our
We
first
just-
meeting is on the 9th, I think the finance committee meets the following Monday, so that kind of works out.
And just to be
Yeah.
clear, the reason I'm saying I think it's okay for us to have this discussion is because there's so much more that the parking commission is gonna be addressing. A huge part was about the various parking lots and the 2-hour, 4-hour, I
Yeah.
forget if there's more than that, overnight parking, like what works, what doesn't work, what do we need to change? I think, from what I remember, that was one of the biggest, areas of discussion.
Well, and from like an engineering standpoint, are we maximizing like parking
Yeah.
areas and places? Like this block of Main Street is awful for parking. Thank you. So I hope that, you know, to
So
your
we
point,
fight for
is,
spots in this parking lot.
yeah, is going to be a consideration of you know.
Did you say this parking lot too, Dave? Is that what you
No, I
said?
said, that's why we fight for parking spots in this
In
lot.
the city hall, yeah.
Because you're not supposed to park here unless you're a city business. And people do, and we've allowed it, and even though people park here to go and pick up pizza, and we don't do anything about it.
Yeah,
Just so, sorry.
yeah, please, this is
Just so you
collaborative
know, when
discussion.
we notice that the cars are out in the city hall parking lot routinely, we will actually, the parking ticket enforcement officer will put a warning on their car
Good.
saying that this is for city business only. You know, and we used to have rules that no employees were supposed to park, you know, so it's, it's because there's just very few spots.
Yeah.
So the parking ticket officer does come and put warning on the tickets.
We've had
Um,
2 issued this week.
Yeah,
We had
we've had
somebody
two
told
issues.
today.
Yeah, because
Oh, nice.
some of,
I mean,
there was a
not,
car that
but-
was just left there, right?
They've been there for 2 months.
Yeah,
Well, where we see it typically is at like council meetings,
Mhm.
where I pull in and I see 2 cars that are parked illegally in the parking lot, or legally, and they're going across the street to grab the pizza that they ordered, and they figure they're only gonna be here a minute, but, it takes up spots.
yeah, so we, we do, I don't wanna say it's enforced every day,
Yeah.
but when we do notice something, we do call the parking ticket enforcement officer,
Okay.
and they'll put warnings on their cars for
No,
that.
I know
Yeah,
that, like,
But that's like driven by the fact that there isn't a lot of parking for those businesses across the street.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so hopefully the task force, I wanna make sure I use the right nomenclature, is gonna be looking at that kind of stuff also.
Well, one thing that we talked about during the budget process is that, in Greg and I's discussions about the parking, the future parking plan, hopefully, is that when we look at our parking ticket revenue versus our paid parking revenues, we want to try to be proactive in our revenue generation instead of punitive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because that way, I think people are, quite often at the window, we get requests, they would like to, instead of paying a parking ticket, they'd much rather pay a parking permit.
Uh-huh,
And
and
so.
then have that peace of mind.
Right, so that's one of the things that
Yeah,
Greg is considering, is to be proactive.
that's excellent, yeah.
But there again, we would have to look at our parking ticket revenues and how it may change it if we're going to be not issuing as many tickets because we're being proactive about it.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to share with the committee that our parking ticket fines used to be very small. And as we raised the parking ticket fines, we found that our parking ticket revenue actually went down, because now a $20 ticket was a lot different than a $5 ticket. Because for people, it was worth paying the $5.
Mhm.
But when it got to be up to $20, they're like, I'm not paying a $20 ticket.
Mhm.
So you just have to be careful of your balance of, but, just a couple, that, as Greg says, it's very complicated, it's very detailed.
Scott, you were gonna say something and I kind of.
I was just going back to days, like with the council meeting stuff, maybe at night, if the 2 codes cars could be moved to free up 2 spots versus being out parked at City Hall, or
It
just
may or
something,
may not. take
just
care
something
of
to
the
look at.
problem.
It may not, no.
We may be removing them for 2 more,
Right,
people
it's a
coming to get their
catch-22,
pizzas.
right? Just something to look at, like committee-wise, when the parking committee meets, if,
It is where we do park the city vehicles though,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Okay, do you feel like you have a good plan to
Yeah,
Move this conversation forward.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll have our meeting on the 9th, and then the next Monday will be our finance meeting.
Okay, I would like to investigate a couple of broader things at some point. And so if at any point we find ourselves becoming redundant with this conversation, I think that there are some different tax things that we could look at that I would like to understand the implications on our finances, and also kind of weigh that, for any benefits that our residents might feel. And then also, I'd like to take a look at our fee manual, schedule is the word I'm looking for, the fee schedule. I know during our conversations, when we were, during the approval process, that a lot of them tend to be sort of, just adjusted incrementally. But I'd really like to start to look at, usage and feasibility, and like the balance between fees kind of covering the costs of the things that they're being charged for. Obviously, that's not realistic in all cases, but anyway, I think there's some work that we could do there. Maybe just take a look at that sort of systematically would be great. So we'll see how it goes. And there's more that we could talk do hope we get somewhere with that soon. Okay, I think I'm on topic H for my additional discussion things, which is as many as we had on the agenda. Does anyone